So instead of just pouring more money into America's schools, regardless of their performance, we launched a national competition between states that only rewards success and reform. Reform that raises student achievement and inspires students to excel in math and science and turns around failing schools that steal the future of too many young Americans. We're also making sure that our nation has an infrastructure that's built to compete in the 21st century. So we now have projects in 31 states that are laying the ground for the first high-speed rail network in the United States of America. For years, Japan, Europe have had high-speed rail. China's got about 40 times as many projects that have been going on this front. We're playing catch-up. We shouldn't be. The Recovery Act has made possible over 12,500 transportation construction projects, from rebuilding highways to improving our airports. And today, we announced funding for over 50 innovative transportation projects across America. Everything from railroads in Appalachia to a new passenger terminal in New Orleans. These projects will put hundreds of thousands of Americans to work. And in many cases, they already have. That's part of the reason that Chuck's here today. He's the president of a construction company in Pennsylvania. And the Recovery Act will fund about a third of the work his paving company will do this year. That's allowed him to hire 2 engineers and about 100 employees. So in case people are wondering whether or not the Recovery Act's created jobs and opportunity for businesses, talk to Chuck. The new equipment he's ordered to help pave these roads will save an additional 40 jobs on an assembly line out in California. These are well-paying, long-lasting private sector jobs that wouldn't be possible without the Recovery Act. They'll be doing the work that America needs done to stay competitive in a global economy. No area is this more important than in energy. Because of the Recovery Act, we have finally jump-started the clean energy industry in America and made possible 200,000 jobs in the clean energy and construction sectors. Just take one example. Consider the investment that we've made in the kind of batteries used in hybrid and electric cars. You've heard about these. Right? Before the Recovery Act was signed, 98% of the world's advanced battery production was done in Asian countries. The United States did less than 2% of this advanced battery manufacturing that's going to be the key to these high-mileage, low-emission cars. Then we invested in new research in battery technologies and supported the construction of 20 battery factories that will employ tens of thousands of Americans. Factories that can make enough batteries each year to power 500,000 plug-in hybrid vehicles. So, as a result, next year, 2 years after the Recovery Act, the United States will have the capacity to produce nearly 20% of the world's advanced batteries, from less than 2% to 20%. And we'll be able to make 40% of these advanced batteries by 2015. An entire new industry because of the Recovery Act. Now, this kind of progress is happening throughout our clean energy sector. Yesterday, I announced loan guarantees to break ground on America's first new nuclear power plant in nearly 3 decades. A plant that will create thousands of construction jobs and 800 permanent jobs in years to come. There's the manufacturer in Philadelphia who makes energy-efficient windows. He used to be skeptical about the Recovery Act until he had to add 2 more shifts just to keep up with the new businesses created. And Blake at Namaste Solar. It's based in Boulder, Colorado. 1 year ago, Blake gave us a tour of one of his company's solar installations on top of a museum in Denver, right before I signed the Recovery Act into law. And at the time, Blake was pretty sure that the recession would force him to lay off about half of his staff. 1 year later, because of the clean energy investments in the Recovery Act, he has instead added about a dozen new workers and expects to hire about a dozen more by year's end. His company continues to install solar panels all over Colorado from the governor's mansion to the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. So that's our future. That's what's possible in America. You can argue, rightly, that we haven't made as much progress as we need to make when it comes to spurring job creation. That's part of the reason why the Recovery Act is on track to save or create another 1.5 million jobs in 2010. That's part of the reason why I expect Congress to pass additional measures as quickly as possible that will help our small business owners create new jobs, give them more of an incentive to hire. But for those skeptics who refuse to believe the Recovery Act has done any good, who continue to insist that the bill didn't work, I'd ask you to take that argument up with Blake and his employees. Take that argument up with Chuck and his construction workers. Take it up with the Americans who are working in those battery plants, or building those new highways, or teaching our children new skills, all because the Recovery Act made it possible. So our work is far from over, but we have rescued this economy from the worst of this crisis. And slowly, in new factories and research facilities and small businesses, the American people are rebuilding a better future. And we will continue to support their efforts. We will leave our children an economy that is stronger and more prosperous than it was before. Thank you very much, everybody.